Hello and welcome to Bears TV. I'm here with Agilia Bears co-promoter Jitendra Duffill, and we're going to do a bit of a Q&A. So we had some great questions coming from the fans. Obviously we couldn't choose all of them, so we've selected a few. I've got a few of my own and we're going to go through the questions. How has it been whilst being in charge of the Bears as co-promoter to turn opinions round from the riders, fans and sponsors from being wooden spoon contenders to genuine title contenders?
Yeah, I think it's happened pretty quickly, really. Obviously, we worked pretty hard over the winter to try and bring some good riders to the club, and although it was my first year as promoter, I was the main promoter. It wasn't like I was unknown to a lot of the riders, and I think that makes it a little bit easier when you already have some relations there. But it's always to your advantage when you have a track like we do here at the Media Premier Arena, because riders love coming in and racing here, and that's always going to be a bit of a pull for the riders anyway. But I think we've changed opinions not just of riders but of other clubs as well, and of course our own supporters, which is nice. Just a lot of hard work, and obviously you need a little bit of luck along the way as well.
Is it easier to attract riders once they see the potential of the club?
Absolutely. I think riders, they want to win races, but at the same time they want to win things, with whatever club they go to. So I think a club that has ambition is certainly attractive to any rider, and reputation then I think looks after itself, and people are usually attracted to that kind of mentality.
Right, I've had a question from Neil Corkin. What are the chances of us tracking the same 1 to 7 next year? And have you considered anything that might need to be done at the track if Speedway has to run with a reduced capacity next year?
Yeah, so we will have some news on our proposed 1 to 7 for next year very shortly. Obviously we wanted to bring every rider back from the 2020 side, but there may be 1 or 2 things that prevent us from doing that. It really depends what happens over the winter, if there are any changes with clubs, and of course not all of the riders in the team are ours. Well, there's only Jordan Stewart who's actually an asset of Redcar, so it's not entirely down to us, but all the riders have shown a desire to be back, and we certainly don't want to change. As far as the stadium goes, we'll definitely need to implement some changes. I would imagine COVID's still going to be around come next March, April. That means social distancing is certainly going to be something that's going to have to be implemented across the stadium. So opening the back straight would be one thing that we'd be looking to do, maybe putting some more permanent spectator facilities over that side of the stadium. So yeah, we've got plenty of time to plan for it anyway, so that's always a good thing, really.
Could you give us all a rundown on how the amateur series has gone so far, and before today's announcement from the government, was there any chance of an open meeting in October?
We hadn't planned to run anything. We'd made this decision a few weeks back between Jamie, Jade, myself, obviously speaking to our directors as well. We just felt there was a lot of risk there, and with things constantly changing, with what's going on with the current pandemic, there's a lot of effort goes into arranging these things, especially with the changes we'd have to make us within the stadium to make us COVID compliant. So we didn't feel as though that it was really worth taking that risk. On top of that, with the current climate, we've had to make some changes in our personal lives as well. So Jade, myself and Jamie are all working full time, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to make those changes at this stage. So yeah, the amateur series has gone really well. A lot of the majority of the credit for that really has to go to Jamie Swales. He's been the one who's organised all of these events, and Jade and I have had some input, really, with more helping on the day when needed. But yeah, it's this is kind of something Jamie's been working at for the last couple of years, and it was part of his role as promoter when we announced him as co-promoter earlier this year. But yeah, it's been successful so far. It's nice to have had some speedway at the MPA, which is that's what we're here for. So it's nice to see the track being used, and obviously it's bringing some income into the into the club as well at a time which is much needed. So it's a big pat on the back for Jamie Swales there.
We had a question from Stuart Bell. So Stuart's asked, what are we doing to replace Terry the Track for next season to make sure this track at the Media Premier Arena remains one of the best in the country?
Yeah, it was a huge blow, and obviously disappointing to lose Terry. He's become a part of this club over the last 3 years that he's been here. But unfortunately, another casualty of COVID, and with no work, he's had to take something which is I guess a little bit more stable for him, and long term, I would imagine that's going to be a much more attractive proposition than another season that maybe have some uncertainty around it. So we have obviously made plans for next year. There's nothing actually set in stone yet, but what I can reassure our fans that the person that we have earmarked for that role would do an excellent job, and we've certainly managed to provide an excellent service as well for the amateur meetings with the team that we have here. So don't worry, we have very, very high expectations ourselves, and we certainly don't wish or plan on compromising on the surface that we're going to produce next year.
Good to hear. So, due to the effects of the global pandemic, do you see many young riders being lost to the sport for good?
I hope not, because we're not exactly experiencing an abundance of riders in our leagues at the moment, which is why we've relied quite a bit on foreign riders coming through. So the more British riders coming through the ranks, the better, really. So it's difficult. I guess a lot of people are going to get used to a regular income, whereas obviously Speedway, it's all performance related, and especially if you're not quite at the top of that ladder, it's going to be a little bit harder to make the way. But I would like to think any rider who's ambitious and actually wants to go somewhere in the sport, they weren't really doing it initially anyway for the financial rewards. It's because they actually want to achieve something within the sport, and I guess only time will tell on that one.
Right, we had a question from Guy Bailey. Guy's asked, in the normal off-season, what do riders get up to, and how have our riders kept themselves occupied this year?
So most riders, they'll be full-time during the season, but in the winter, certainly our 1 to 7, I know most of them work. Charles has had some regular work with a local builder, so I know he's working in construction and has done in the past. Casper has been, from what I understand, has had several jobs recently, which I think again he usually does. So he's worked in anything from fast food restaurants to, he was actually over in Italy at one point in lockdown cleaning an engine on a massive ship. So he's certainly been quite varied in what he's done. Michael Palmtoft I know has been working with in a breaker's yard, so he's been dismantling cars and other vehicles. Jordan Stewart has actually taken the opportunity to finish his apprenticeship, so at least something positive come for Geordie, because I believe he's been doing that for the last 3 or 4 years in between obviously racing over here. Eric Race was working for his dad's company, so they a joinery company, but I think specialising in roofing. Not something I know that Eric particularly enjoys, but he did that for a little while, and then I know he's over in Australia now with his fiancée. He's due to get married very shortly. Training really hard for next year as well. Jordan Jenkins has been working for a big supermarket chain. I know he was offered a permanent contract there earlier in the year, so it's good to hear that he's had some financial stability. And Joe Lawler, I believe, has had a few different jobs. I know he's working in construction, and I saw a Facebook post from him today advertising for a tree surgeon, so I don't know whether he's working something in that sort of line. But it's good to see that they're all keeping themselves busy, and I know during the winter most of them like to make sure that they've got that income.
Thank you. Do you see all of the teams who were proposed to come to tapes this season in the championship come to tapes next season?
It's really too early to tell at this moment in time. I know that there's been some obviously stories in the press about clubs struggling, such as Newcastle. We know are looking for a permanent base in the future. Though I would like to think they'd still be at Brook Park next year. And Paul have obviously had some issues there with their landlords, but I know that these promotions are mega keen, and if there's a way and a solution around that, they'll be working on it. And yeah, I'd like to say that. I'd like to see all teams come back to the tips, in 2021.
I've had a question from David Tate. I have changed it slightly, David. I hope you don't mind. Do you see teams in the future having a female rider at number 7? And if you do, how far do you think this is off happening?
If there's a female rider comes through the ranks, which is good enough, absolutely. That should never be a barrier, and it wouldn't be. In speedway, or I hope any sport. It's something I'd like to see in future. I know there are quite a few female riders at the moment, and it's riding in our amateur series as well, who've been very impressive. So yeah, I'd like to see that, and yeah, who knows.
Thank you. Do you think our success last season has helped the club through the pandemic, as fans and sponsors have seen our potential, which has helped season ticket holders renew the season ticket and sponsors continue to back the club into next year?
Yeah, I do think to some extent that's been a big help. I think, not only our success last season, but I do know that we restructured quite a bit with the sponsorship side last year, and the feedback we've had from them is the confidence in the club, and certainly the satisfaction that they've felt. They've seen as a sponsor as being pretty high. So I do think that's played a big factor in not only the sponsors. All our main sponsors have actually agreed to roll over, as a lot of our the minor sponsors. Anything from the people who are advertising the program to heat sponsorship, air fence banners. It's all massive to us, and it's definitely the reason I would say that we've been able to announce quite comfortably that we'll be coming at the tips in 2021. And again, to our season ticket holders, who we offered everybody the chance to roll it over, and I think we've only had to have a request of one season ticket holder for a refund, which everybody's situation is a bit different, but I think that just shows the level of confidence and support that we have, and we can't thank our sponsors and fans enough for that.
Thank you. Right, we had a question from the Redcar Bear. Don't know who this is, but that's the name, the Redcar Bear. Who decides who goes on the recently announced Speedway and Teesside Roll of Honour, and can fans vote?
Yeah, so this was actually an idea, and a really great idea, of Jade Mudgeways. So that's something that we may need to direct towards Jade. I don't want to interfere with something he's worked so hard on, but we have discussed it, and I would feel that we will take nominations, and whether that be from supporters or from sponsors. We just want to give something back to anybody who's contributed to the club. It's we obviously have honoured several riders, and we have the Julie Lewis every year as well to honour her memory, but there are a lot of other people associated with the club down the years, and the club wouldn't be where it is without these people, and we felt that we wanted to give them really an outlet to thank them, and to honour them, and really display and showcase exactly what they've done for the club.
Fair enough. When you took the mantle of the Bears manager, did you ever see yourself in this position as the club promoter?
No, not really. I still don't really know how it happened, to be honest. It was a bit of a surprise initially when Kevin Kay asked me to become co-promoter. It's not something I'd ever really thought of, but I didn't really have to think about it too hard, to be honest. It was a big honour to be asked, and I think anybody who either knows me or has listened to me speak before knows how much passion I have for Redcar Speedway, and as a supporter of Speedway on Teesside. I used to go to watch Middlesbrough from probably the age of 1 or even less. So But then that to evolve to obviously taking over as the main promoter of the club a couple of years ago only really came about, if I'm really honest, because I don't think the club would have survived at that time had I not taken over that role. And that's something, if I had the power to change, I was never going to let happen. So yeah, it's unexpected, but yeah, it's funny how life takes you in these strange directions.
Right, we've had a question from Ryan D. When will the training days reopen for teenagers? Are there any plans to reopen this year?
Yeah, we've had a few people ask about that, and it's something we'd definitely love to do again. Obviously, we've had a lot of challenges faced us this year. There are other challenges, we would encounter with obviously social distancing and the extra coaching required for somebody that age. And while that we have the difficulties that we do at the moment due to COVID, it's just not something that we can see I would say certainly this season. But yeah, it's something we would like to do again next year. And yeah, if you keep watching our page, Facebook page and website, we'll announce that in due course.
Question from the North Yorkshire Bear from the Bears Forum. Have you got any thoughts or plans to run a National League team at Redcar? With Newcastle planning on having a National League side who would have ran in the National Trophy this year, do you think it could be a suggestion to share the team between Newcastle and Redcar with home meetings shared between the two clubs?
Yeah, it's something we've considered in the past. I would definitely like to see National League Speedway here again in the future. The big barrier to that, there's been a couple. The first is we have run National League here before, and it was quite costly for us to do it. I think at some levels National League is really well supported, but I would probably argue that's when it's a standalone team rather than a second team. When people are paying to come and watch both Championship and National League, I guess if people are going to choose, most people are probably going to choose for the high level. It's not something we've ruled out. I guess at the moment with the challenges we're facing, it's not something we're going to be looking at next year. But certainly, we want to play our part in developing future talent. Obviously, we already are running the amateur meetings, and we have regular second halves here. So yeah, watch the space.
Were you surprised by Newcastle's decision to run in the National Trophy?
I was, but I think that's a lot of credit has to go to Rob Grant there, and obviously it says a lot about him and his ambitions and also his commitment to youth speedway. I guess the other thing that was a little bit of a barrier to us as well is just the time invested. For me, just to do what I need to run, in one division, is pretty challenging, especially now I'm working full time. So even with Jamie and Jade delegated in their roles, I think it would be a big challenge for us to run another team at this point in time.
That's fair enough. So final question. To the best of your knowledge, before the virus took hold, how many speedway teams are self-sufficient, and how far were or are the Bears off becoming self-sufficient?
Yeah, we're not quite there. We definitely moved closer over the last year. So there are quite a few changes I feel we can make to make the business more sustainable. The aim has always been to try and turn the Bears into a profit-making business. So that's not because we particularly plan on taking money from the club. It's just it'll help us to achieve, I guess, sustainability for the future.
Help the club run itself.
Yeah, and just to make us more financially stable in the long run. So we're getting there. We've made changes already. Well, we had made changes for this season to bring catering in-house, and we've obviously started to roll out our own range of merchandise, which again was all outsourced last time. So it was all of these things that they're all small changes, but the profit you can generate from this collectively can bring us closer to that, break-even figure. Speedway in general is an expensive hobby for a lot of clubs rather than a business. We'd like to change that.
So there isn't many teams who do make a profit from Speedway at this level?
I can't really speak for other clubs, but I think I'd be surprised if there were many people making much money from Speedway.
Right, thank you for your time, Mr. Duffill. So, thank you for tuning in to Bears TV. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't get your question asked, maybe you will next time. Thank you and goodbye.